distinctive brand assets. So these are all the things that make you look like yourself and make you look different than others that are similar to you. Um, and and one of the things that you often see, especially in B2B, is there's often a tendency to look, for different brands to end up looking very similar to one another. Same
Mm,
colors, same fonts,
mm,
similar sorts of logos. And one of the things that you see is that in some areas there can be very high misattribution rates among brand marketing, where someone will see an ad for company A, but it looks so much like company B because they're using similar colors, the same fonts, very similar sorts of logos. It looks so much like brand B that they completely think that they have seen an ad for brand B, or that that ad will actually trigger a memory of brand B. This is a real problem if you're a small brand working against large competitors. If you look too much like your large competitor, your ads won't trigger a memory of you. They will trigger a memory of your competitor. Um,
mhm.
so this is why the creative side of distinctive brand assets becomes very, very important for success. But these things are like logos, taglines, colors and fonts, mascots, which turn out to be very little used and extremely powerful because we have a tendency to remember sort of anthropomorphic things, animals and
Yeah,
people.
I agree
Um,
with it.
and we see this with something, with a really highly successful brand like Salesforce. From day one, Salesforce used mascots. When they made a large pivot in the, around 2010, 2012, part of that pivot was around pivoting away from the um, what they call the sassy mascot, which was basically a person in a costume that had the no software logo, uh, over to Astro, the kid in the raccoon costume, and now it's kind of this whole collection of animal mascots that they that is present in every single ad that they do. Um, the other thing that turns out to be very significant, because again, we have this ability to remember auditory cues, are jingles, bumpers, and stingers.
Mhm.
Um, so, not just, a song, but, just a single, four notes in a row that are unique, and, you look at something like, for those that are old enough to remember, the AOL you have mail ding, highly
Mhm.
distinctive. It was like a two note or three note ding. The, the, the logon ding for Windows that was around for a long time.
Yeah.
And then things like packaging design. And again, you see this with Apple, where part of what makes Apple very distinctive isn't just the product, but how the package looks. And you see an Apple package, that that is Apple without ever having to see the Apple logo.
Yeah, I'm gonna, oh wait, can we go back to that style? Okay, I wanna add a little bit to this because I think one thing that I see a lot is we see a lot of companies really only have the first three, right? Logo, sometimes tagline, colors and fonts. To your point, mascots are a super underutilized distinctive brand asset, even for smaller challenger brands. I mean, I think most of us found this event on LinkedIn. And one brand that's a smaller brand even that I think is taking advantage of mascots is a company like Fiddler, which uses the pink lion almost throughout everything that Adam Holmgren and his team does. And I think like you don't have to be a large brand to use a mascot effectively as a distinctive brand asset. I think I mean, I'm seeing a brand like Fiddler use that super effectively. Another the jingles, bumpers, and singers. I think these things to me are like some of the most memorable things that you actually associate to brands. You cited a bunch of examples. One thing that is like etched in my memory is like the ding from Teams. Like I always know what the sound of a Microsoft Teams message is because I just hear it so often. And so like the sound of your brand actually matters quite a bit. And I think companies that use that really effectively, especially when they're consistent about it really make it last. I had a question for you on this too, because I don't know if this actually falls into this category, but I just wanted to think about it a little tactically because I'm thinking I was reading a lot of the output of like the Cannes Festival last week, and like influencer marketing was like one of the huge topics, even though it's been around forever. But for whatever reason, all those huge brands now are thinking about it and want to present on it. But how do influencer efforts like help or hurt you when you want to look like yourself? I'm curious, kind of how you view something like that in relation to this.
Well, and that's a challenge because, you know, if the influencer is well known, or at least well known to their audience, um, are they reinforcing their own brand, or are they reinforcing your brand? And there's a lot of evidence that uh, the influencer presenting your brand in many circumstances can be very weak, in the sense that it's really triggering is memories of the influencer as opposed to memories of the brand that they're presenting. Um, the other thing with especially in the era of video, where I think
Mhm.
everyone has video marketing assets, there's no reason you should not have a highly distinctive bumper and a highly distinctive stinger, at the beginning and the ending of those videos. And even something like jingles, which are considered kind of old school. I'll just tell you a quick anecdote. In the late 1940s, Alka-Seltzer came up with a short little jingle that was plop plop fizz fizz. I won't try to sing it. Um, there are people of a certain age that all you have to say is plop plop and they can immediately break into that jingle. What's interesting is the last time that and Alka-Seltzer really heavily used this in TV advertising and secondarily radio, but heavily TV. The last time an Alka-Seltzer commercial ran with that jingle was 1975. And 50 years later, there are tens of millions of people who can, you say the first two words and they can finish the song. And so that gives you a sense of kind of the power and the long lasting memory structures that something like a jingle can, or these bumpers or stingers can provide you. So these are simple to do and very powerful in terms of adding to the list of distinctive brand assets.
Dale,
Yeah,
we
I
have a
think,
question in
Yes.
chat from Amit who wants to know what the line is between DBA and something that's replicable, like a department store who's known for heartwarming, tear-jerking, creative narratives during the holiday season. So, where do you ride the line between something that's distinctly yours and something that's more thematic?
I mean, I think a good thing, I mean, a reasonable dividing line is, if someone else uses it, can I sue them? um, uh, because that then means that you're establishing a moat. That you've got a sufficient intellectual protection, and the reason these laws exist are because this is what companies for decades and decades tried to do, was to basically steal each other's fame by or recognition by mimicking their assets. And so the reason that there are very clear laws about how close you can get to matching someone else before you get sued is because that's really where the demarcation is. You can't intellectually protect a feeling or a concept or an idea, but you can definitely protect a jingle, a bumper, a mascot, a logo, um, and even things like colors and fonts. If they get heavily copied because they're not that protectable, so you can't rely just on something like colors and fonts, um, alone. And this is why some of these other distinctive brand assets really give you a deeper moat,
mhm.
because you have a higher degree of legal protection for a longer period of time. And you look at someone like Coca-Cola or BMW or Nike, that Coke 120 years, BMW now 130 or 40 years, Mercedes, um, more than 100 years, with essentially the same core distinctive brand assets. So there are highly successful companies that have had really stable use of these sorts of devices for a long time.
It's sometimes not just the brand asset too, but how you use the brand asset as well. So like, we'll get into this later as we get into more of this presentation, but the amount of reach you try to give those assets across your serviceable, obtainable market also matters quite a bit, because there's lots of brands that have distinctive brand assets, but will over-index on things like performance marketing, where those things don't really take the hold or build the moat that they're initially designed to do.
Right.